in you. Put our eyes in you. We trust in you. Trust in you. Turn our eyes to you. In Zion, praise awaits you. Praise awaits you. You're a jealous God. All day you think of us. Oh, a fire burns inside your heart. For Israel we trust in you. Turn our eyes to you. We trust in you. Turn our eyes to you. Trust in you. Eyes to you. Turn our eyes to you. Turn our eyes to you. And praise awaits you. Praise awaits you. Praise awaits you. Praise awaits you in the kingdom from all of your people, Israel. Praise awaits you for those who believe in you, who know you. Praise is waiting for you to dwell in and to reveal yourself to all of your people. Jews and Gentiles, all of them together in your kingdom, waiting to hear from you, waiting to understand you, waiting to see you and hear you. I ask, Father, that you'd pour out your Ruach, that all over the earth people would begin to see your ways in the mitzvot, your plan in the mitzvot, your words, your spirit in the mitzvot, so we could come to know you as you truly are. In the name of Yeshua, amen. You may be seated. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to look at a strange guy today. This guy that the Torah portion is named after, Pinchas. He's a mystery. He's hidden. He's a mystery, but he's more like Yeshua than any other guy in the Bible except for David. Although David, all the information is given to us about David, but there's all these mysteries about Pinchas that is just not given to us. It's not given to us in the Bible. It's not given to us in the words of the sages, although there's a lot written about him in the words of the sages, but they end up basically saying, this is a mystery man. We don't really know where he comes from. We don't know if he's young, is he old, was he a priest later on, was he a priest before, even though he's from the priestly family. But he's not from the priestly family. So he's like a mystery. It's like Yeshua. Yeshua has Gentiles in his background. Name me one. Ruth. She converted to Judaism. She was a Gentile. She was a Moabite. Any other Gentiles in the lineage of Yeshua? Abraham. Okay, that's cheating a little because that's back to the beginning. But anybody later on? So actually there's four. There's four Gentiles in the lineage of Yeshua that converted to Judaism. Well, this guy's the same. He's like Yeshua. Like, the rabbis don't really know what to make of him. But he showed the love that God has for Israel, just like Yeshua did. But it's mixed with anger and what they call zeal. There's no such word as zeal in the Bible. It's jealousy, kina. It's translated zeal half the time, and half the time it's translated jealousy. I'll give you an example. Sota. In Numbers 5, the bitter waters of what? Why is it not zeal? If a man has a spirit of zeal for his wife, because it's obviously jealousy. It is the same exact word, kina. But half the time it's translated zeal, half the time it's translated jealousy. If you go to the New Testament, in Hebrew, in Acts chapter something, 16 maybe, 16, it says that Shaul, Paul is talking to all the people in Jerusalem, all the believers, and they say to him, look how many tens of thousands of believers in Yeshua there are, and they're all jealous for the Torah. It's not translated that way. It says zealous for the Torah, but it is the word kina in Hebrew. So you got to be careful with this word, because what Pinchas showed, they translated zeal usually, but it's not zeal. It's jealousy, and I'm going to show you why. So the title of the teaching is The Greatest Love of All, Jealousy. Now, most people would say zeal. Numbers 25, 10 through something. I don't know how far it goes. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Pinchas ben Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest. Now, is he in the lineage of the priests? He's the grandson of Aaron, so he is definitely in the lineage of the priest. So he should be a priest, right? He should be a priest. Maybe the high priest. Maybe. Has turned away my wrath from the sons of Israel, in that he was jealous with my jealousy within them, inside them. Bakanoah, in jealousy, bakinati, in my jealousy, kinati, mine. Betochem, inside of them. Problem was, there wasn't jealousy, God's jealousy inside of them. Only in one guy, Pinchas. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, look, out of all of you, hundreds of thousands of Jews, one guy felt what I felt, my jealousy. And then it says, so that I did not destroy the sons of Israel in my kina, in my jealousy. Bakinati. Therefore say, behold, I give him a covenant of shalom, and it shall be for him and his seed after him, a covenant of a perpetual priesthood. So, is he a priest? Yes. Are his children going to be priests? Yes. All right, makes perfect sense. He's a grandson of Aaron. He should be a priest. His children are always going to be priests because he did this act where he felt God's jealousy. Pretty simple. And it shall be for him and his seed after him a covenant of perpetual priesthood, a kahuna olam, perpetual kahuna. His state. Now here, it's kind of weird to translate this. This is hard to translate. His station beneath him, that he was jealous for his God. Tachat asher kine lelohav. Tachat means underneath, but it's like, it could also be translated station or place or dirt or area, because it's underneath you. So wherever you are, wherever you're placed, that's the tachat, that's the thing that's underneath. So that's why it's translated his station beneath him, underneath him, and this is what it was. This was his station. He felt my jealousy. That was his station. That was his tachat. That he felt jealousy for his God. Tachat asher kine lelohav. And made atonement for the sons of Israel. Now, Moshe and Aaron had to make atonement over and over and over again, from the rebellion of Korach to Meribah, where they complained about water, and all these other situations in the wilderness, in the Midbar, where Moshe and Aaron had to make atonement. Okay, cool. This guy's doing it all by himself, like Moshe would do. But he did it, and the way he did it is exactly the opposite of the way that Moshe would do. Moshe would go into the temple, into the tabernacle, throw himself on the ground on his face and beg for God not to wipe the Jews out. Well, this guy did it just the opposite. Now, the name of the slain man of Israel who was slain with the Midianite woman was Zimri ben Salu, a leader of the father's house among Shimeon. The name of the Midianite woman who was slain was Cosbi Batsur, who was head of the people of a father's household in Midian. Remember, Midian is down where Mount Sinai is. Then the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, continually be hostile to the Midianites and strike them, for they have been hostile to you with their tricks, with which they have deceived you in the affair of Peor and in the affair of Cosbi Bat, leader of Midian. All right, so whose idea was it to send the Midianite women in there to deceive the Jews? Nobody remembers? Okay, we'll review. So we're going to review what we've missed since the last Torah portion, leading up to our Torah portion. So you can see here, can you get my pointer from the box? I'm sorry. You can see here that they're at Kadesh. Remember, everything for 38 years happens from Kadesh, or Petra. And now they go just a couple miles. Actually, it's a mile and a half. Thank you very much. It's a mile and a half from Kadesh up to Mount Hor. And you can see in this photograph, I don't know if you can see this, but back here, there's this, the top of this tomb of Aaron. That's what that is. This is the tomb of Aaron. And you can see it, a little bit more than a mile back in the distance. This is Petra. So they moved like a mile, like 1 million people got up and moved like a mile. That's ridiculous. Well, what am I saying? 2 million people got up and moved a mile. So the Lord spoke to Moshe and Aaron at Mount Hor by the border of the land of Edom. And remember last week, Moshe sent messengers to Edom and said, Edom, let us pass through your land. We're going to go up by the Derech HaMelech, and we're not going to eat or drink anything that belongs to you. If we do, we'll pay for it. We are going to go up by the king's way. And Edom says, none shall pass. And they say, we are going to go up by the king's way. But they don't. They stay where they are. We're not going to turn to the right or to the left. So it's obviously talking about doing Judaism. And it says, they're at Mount Hor by the border of the land of Edom. So they're still by the border of the land of Edom. This is on the border of the land of Edom. And it says, Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will not enter the land that I've given to the sons of Israel, because you rebelled against my mouth at the waters of Meribah. Whoop. Come on now. Then they set out from Mount Hor by the way of the Reed Sea. All right, so now they drop down south. They go to Mount Hor, and then they drop down south. They're going along the border of Edom to the way of the Reed Sea. This is the very, very, very top of the Reed Sea, Tzion Gever. That's the southernmost point of Israel's border. Then they set out from Mount Hor to go down to the Reed Sea, around the land of Edom. People become impatient. They start complaining, and God sends snakes that bites a bunch of them. And God tells Moshe, build this Nehushtan, which means bronze, or serpent. It's the same word. Build a Nehushtan and put it on a pole. People usually they do an artwork of this little tiny snake wrapped around a pole. This thing was huge. So much so that they set it up in Israel a century later. They set it up in Israel to be worshipped as a god. And they're erecting this thing, and he says, anybody who looks at the Nehushtan, when it's raised up, if he looks at it, he'll be healed. Now this happens down here, near Edom, as they're going down somewhere around here, and then they come back. So somewhere in there, that's where this happens. And then it says, now move out and go to Ovot, then Iye Avarim, then Wadi Zared, then the other side of the Arnon. So now they're moving north. Now they're going up north here. They go up to Punon, and then to Ovot. Ovot, by the way, means demon, familiar spirit. And then to Iye Avarim, which means cry of a demon. So this is not good stuff here. They go here, they go here, they go here, and now they're into the land of the Moabites. Now, what I want you to pay attention to on the maps is that Moab is divided into two parts. There's a southern part and a northern part. The southern part is Moab. God says you can't have that. But the northern part that used to be Moab, God says, take that land. And it was given to the tribe of Reuben later on. See, there it is. There's a southern part, there's a northern part. So that's going to change. They're going to take all that northern part. They're going to take all that land. From there to Be'er and to Mattanah and the valley that is in the land of Moab at the top of Pisgah. Now they've gone all the way through Moab, and they're still in Moab, and they go to these towns up here, and this is it. This is where they're going to stay until they go into the land of Israel. So now they've gone far north up to the place where they're going to camp, and they're going to get ready to go into the land of Israel. To the top of Pisgah, which overlooks the wasteland. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon. Now they do the same thing to Sihon, king of the Amorites, that they did with Edom. And they say, let us go through your land. We want to go farther north. And they say, none shall pass. Same exact thing happens. And they say, we will go by the Derech HaMelech. We will go by the way of the king. We won't touch anything of yours. If we do, we'll pay for it. Don't worry, we're not going to touch anything. We're going to stay in the path and not look to the right or to the left. And they say, no, we're going to come out and kill you. How about that? Now, this is Sihon, one of the last remaining giants, and he runs the whole show in Moab. Then it says, until we've passed through your border. But Sihon would not permit Israel to pass through his border, so Sihon gathered all his people and went out against Israel in the wilderness, and Israel slaughters them. Just slaughters them. So they come to this town, Yahaz. Is that right? Yep. They come to Yahaz. Now look how much is Amorite land. All of this, all the way up to the Golan Heights. So this is really the bulk of the east side of the Jordan, which belongs to Israel because we took it in battle. But this was all owned by the Amorite. Now there's another king after this. There's Sihon, Amorite, and then there's Og, king of Bashan. Bashan is way up here. It's actually above the map. So it's just giants and Amorites all the way up as far north as you can go in Israel. They came to Yahaz and fought against Israel, and Israel struck him with the edge of the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon River, here's the Arnon, to the Yavok River. I thought this was Moab. It is. But Moab and Amorites kept fighting and fighting and fighting over the land, and there's a border here that was mostly Moab. And Yahaz is right on the border of Moab and Amorite land. So they came to Yahaz, they fought, Israel whoops them, and they take all that land all the way up to the Yavok as far as the sons of Ammon. And Israel took all these cities and lived in all the cities of the Amorites. Then they turned and went up north by the way of Bashan. So now they're going even farther north. And they go all the way up here to Edrei, which is still a city, by the way. And Og, king of Bashan, another giant, comes out, makes war against Israel, and Israel takes 60 cities from the Amorites. Then they turned and went up by the way of Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, went out with his people for battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to Moshe, don't fear him. I've given him into your hand, and all his people and all his land. Do to him just like you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon. So they killed him and his sons and all his people until there was no remnant left, and they possessed his land. All right, so we've taken now all of the land from the Arnon River all the way up to Syria. Edrei is in Syria. And all the way up above that to Bashan. So now we've got the entire east side of the Jordan. Okay? And while they're there, here at Baal Peor, where they're going to basically be until they go into Israel, they've gone up, way, way, way up north, and now they come back down. And they come and they stay here again. Well, they had, that's where they were. That's where they left all their women and children and animals and all that. So they have to come back there from the battle. And then it says, the sons of Israel journeyed and camped in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan opposite Jericho. Now Balak ben Zippor. Now here's where all this trouble starts. When Balaam is called by Balak, king of Moab. Here's Moab. Now remember, Moab's land went all the way up here. But Israel took it. So it's not Moab land anymore. Now it's Jew land. This used to be Moabite land. But there's still a king there that rules over Moab. So he says, Balak, you got to come. Balaam, you got to come. And you got to curse Israel. And all the trouble starts because what Balaam does is he can't curse Israel, but he stays behind a little bit, and he says, I'll tell you what, have all the women come. And it was his idea, it was Balak's idea to bring all the Midianite women from way down south in Saudi Arabia. Bring all these women up to be prostitutes, and that'll get them to turn from their God. And it works like a charm. So it says, now please come curse this people for me. Then Balaam arose and departed and returned to his place. Balak also went his way. While Israel remained at Shittim, the people began to play the whore with the daughters of Moab. They invited the people to the sacrifices to their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods, and the Lord was angry with Israel. So all these Midianite women come up, and then the Moabite women come up and join them, and all hell breaks loose. Everything stops. Everything stops for Israel because they turn to these gods. Why? Because of the women. And it worked like a charm. So you can see here, they're at Baal Peor. You can see Mount Nebo here where Moses died and was buried. Okay? And it says they camped by the Jordan from Beit Yeshimot as far as Abel Shittim. Remember it said they were at Shittim, the plains of Shittim. That's Abel Shittim, in the plains of Moab. And here's a close-up. You can see plains of Shittim here. So here's where it all goes south. They're 2 steps away from going into the land. And it all goes south because they turn to idolatry because of the women. The Lord said to Moshe, take all the leaders of the people and hang them up before the Lord in front of the sun. Now that could be crucifixion, it could be impaling, or it could be hanging. I don't know, and nobody knows what it is. None of the rabbis know. They all have different opinions. But hang them up before the sun, in front of the sun. Why do you think it says that? Hang them up in front of the sun. Because that's what they were worshiping with these women. They were worshiping the sun god of Moab and the sun god of the Midianites, both of them. So that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel. So Moshe said to the judges of Israel, each of you kill his men who have joined themselves to Baal Peor. Then behold, one of the sons of Israel came and brought to his brothers a Midianite woman, brought to his brothers a Midianite woman. That means he's her pimp. And he's saying, hey, come on and let's do stuff to this Midianite woman, all of us together. So he's inviting an orgy of the Jewish men to be with this one Midianite. And by the way, the Midianite woman was a princess of Midian. She was no shluff. She was a princess, one of the heads of the tribes of Midian. in the sight of Moshe and in the sight of all the congregation of Israel while they were weeping at the doorway of the tent of meeting. Why are they weeping at the doorway of the tent of meeting? Because God said, get all of them and kill them. And so they did. When Pinchas, now we're to the hero, when Pinchas ben Eleazar ben Aharon the priest saw it, he arose from the midst of the congregation and took a spear in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent and pierced them through, the man of Israel and the woman through the pelvis. Through her pelvis is what it says in Hebrew. Through her pelvis. So the plague on the sons of Israel was checked. Those who died by the plague were 24,000. So there's a plague going on. That's why they're weeping. Not only did the Jews go and kill their brothers who joined themselves to Baal, or there's also a plague that God sent. And so they're weeping, oh God, why are you killing us? And then in the midst of all this mess, Pinchas gets up with a spear and shish kebabs the man and the woman through her pelvis. And why? Because that's what God felt. Not what God wanted, what God felt. And that's why he kept saying, why am I going to give this guy a covenant of shalom forever? Because he felt my jealousy among them. I mean, why didn't the rest of them feel God's jealousy? But they didn't. Among them. He felt it among them. This is what Rashi says. Pinchas ben Eleazar ben Aharon the Cohen. Since the tribes were disparaging him, they were putting him down. They were making fun of Pinchas, saying, have you seen the son of Puti? And I'm like, when I read that, I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Have you seen the son of Puti? What does that have to do with anything? Where did that come from? Whose mother's father, Jethro, what? I thought his mother's father was from the tribe of Levi, from the priests. Well, he's saying the son of Puti, whose mother's father, Jethro, pitem, fattened calves for idols. That's a bad thing. And who killed the chieftain of an Israelite tribe. That's what they're saying. They're saying, this Pinchas, he's a son of Puti. He's the son of a guy who fattened calves for idolatry, and he killed the head of Simeon. He's horrible. For this reason, Scripture traces his pedigree to Aaron, not to his mom's father, who is Puti. Whoever Puti is, who is that? And this is from Sanhedrin 82 and from Numbers Rabbah. So he tells us where all this is coming from. But I'm like, what are you talking about? Puti? So here's Puti. Putiel. This is, Hebrew is Putiel. The name Putiel occurs only once in the whole Bible, in Exodus 6, where it is stated that Eleazar, son of Aaron, married one of Putiel's daughters. That's all it says. And that their son was Pinchas. This is where Pinchas came from. So that's Putiel, whoever that is. The rabbis identified Putiel with Jethro, and gave him two homiletic picture interpretations of the name. One was praiseworthy, which says he left his land and his people, and he converted to Judaism. It's the same root word as puti. He left, patar. He emancipated himself from idolatry. And then the other one says that he pitem calves. He fattened calves for idolatry. So he did both. He was a pagan priest. But then he wasn't, because he converted. So they're saying that Puti and Putiel is Yitro, a Gentile, who converted to Judaism. So he fattened calves for the purpose of idolatrous worship. The same passage, however, also refers to Joseph, who overcame pitpet, same word, his passion. Do you understand what he's saying? They're saying that the word puti is not his name. It's what he did. He separated himself from idolatry. He fattened calves for worship in idolatry. Did both. But then also it says Joseph did that too. So that now they're saying there's a connection with Joseph here. Got it? And I'll show you what that is. And what the conclusion is that Pinchas was descended from both. Pinchas was descended from both being Yitro, the Gentile, who converted to Judaism, and from Joseph, who produced Ephraim and Manasseh. You with me so far? Okay. I got lost during this. That's why I'm asking. It has been suggested that Putiel is in fact a Hebraicized version of Potiphera, which is a no-brainer. And it tells us why. Priest of On, idolatrous priest in Egypt, whose daughter Joseph married. Potiphera, Putifera. Fa being the definite article meaning the in Egyptian, and Ra is the Egyptian sun god. Putifera, the sun god. Priest of the sun god. So what it's saying is this. It's saying that Putiel, the only time it shows up is in Exodus 6:25 as the progenitor of this guy Pinchas. And what it's saying is this, that Putiel was a code word for two people, Yitro and Joseph. Joseph married a Gentile, right? The daughter of the priest of On, Ra, the priest of On, which is Ra also, a Gentile priest in Egypt. Now look at this. It says this in Hebrew. Pharaoh, Genesis 41:45, Pharaoh called Joseph's name Tzafnat Paneach, and he gave him Asnat, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. And what it's saying is this, that this woman, Asnat, is really the sister of the same one that married Moses. Who married Moses? Who married Moses? No. Zipporah. Remember? Whose daughter was Zipporah? Yitro. So it's saying this. It's saying that Asnat is the sister of Zipporah. And they're both the daughters of Yitro, which puts Yitro in Egypt. Yes? Guess what? There were 3 advisors to Pharaoh that told him what to do. I had this in the notes and I took it out. There were 3 advisors who told Pharaoh what to do with the Jew problem. Anybody know who they were? I'll tell you one. One is Yitro. Anybody know who the other 2 are? No? These are Pharaoh's advisors. Nobody knows? Job. Anybody know the other one? I've told you this before. Balaam. The evil Balaam, the wizard. Balaam came up with the idea to slaughter all the Jews. All of them. Job kept his mouth shut, and he stayed neutral. And so he had a horrible, horrible life and lost everything. It was added back to him after he turned to God, but before that, he had a horrible life. He lost everything because he kept his mouth shut in the face of Jews being murdered. It was that Job, same Job, yeah. And you can see that in the scriptures, by the way. We're given his genealogy, and you can see that he lived at the same time. And the third guy, Yitro, said, "Why should we kill the Jews? What did they do to you?" And so he had to flee for his life from Egypt, just like Moshe did. His father-in-law did the same thing first. He goes back to Midian, but before he went, Potiphera, the father-in-law of Joseph, the priest of Heliopolis, that's in Egypt, who belongs to the sun. Potiphar. It's a shortened form of Potiphera. So when Rashi says, they were saying, who is this son of Puti? What are they saying? They're saying, he's the son of a Gentile, Yitro. So is Moses. But they don't say that about Moses, but they say it about this guy, Pinchas. So we can see that Pinchas, and I hope I've proven this sufficiently, Pinchas is both from Yitro and from Joseph. From Yitro and from Joseph. So he is therefore just like Yeshua. Now, what it said to him is, it shall be for him and his seed after him a covenant of perpetual kahuna, priesthood. His station beneath him that he was jealous for his God. An eternal covenant of kahuna. Rashi says, although the kahuna had already been... Now watch this. I got lost here too. Although the kahuna had already been given to Aaron's descendants, so shouldn't he have already been given that? Yeah. So why is it God saying it to him? If he's already got the kahuna, why is God saying, okay, you're going to have the kahuna from now on? That's okay, God, I've already got it through my grandfather Aaron. What do I need it for? He's already got it. Or does he? Although the kahuna had already been given to Aaron's descendants, it had been given only to Aaron and his sons who were anointed with him, back in the Torah portion Shemini, and to their children whom they would beget after their anointing. Pinchas, however, who was born before that and had never been anointed. Why? If he was born before that, why wasn't he anointed? That would mean he's old enough to be anointed, but he wasn't. He had never been anointed, had not been included in the kahuna until now, and so we learn in Tractate Zevachim, Pinchas wasn't made a Kohen until he killed Zimri. And then when he did it, God says, okay, all of a sudden now you're perpetual priesthood. You see what I'm saying? This guy is a total freak mystery. He's a freak. We don't know who his parents are, really. We can figure it out, but it's never told who his parents are. We don't know what family he's from, really, because it looks like he's from Ephraim and the priesthood, from the family of Aaron. We don't know how old he is. Hey, did the whole generation die off before they went into the land of Israel? Did the whole generation die off? Did God say, this whole generation has to die off before we go into the land? Did he say that? Guess what? It never happened. It never happened. They didn't all die off. A lot of them did, but not all of them. So we don't know if this guy is young. Is he older than everybody else? Is he younger than everybody else? Nobody knows. This man is a mystery. And he rises up and he does this murderous act. He impales people while they're having intercourse through the woman's pelvis, not through the man's pelvis, through the woman's pelvis, which means that's what it hit first. And God says, you are going to be given shalom for eternity because you did this murderous act. Well, it's a picture, obviously. So now I've shown you, as best I can, that Pinchas is from Yitro. Now I'm going to prove to you that he's from Joseph. And here's how we know. At the end of Joshua, this is the very, very last verse of Joshua. It says, now they buried the bones of Joseph, which the sons of Israel brought up from Egypt at Shechem, in the piece of ground that Jacob bought for 100 pieces of money, and they became the inheritance of Joseph's sons. Okay, good. But then it says, the last thing in the book of Joshua, it says, and Eleazar, the high priest, this is now the high priest, Eleazar ben Aharon died, and they buried him at Gibeah of Pinchas, his son. What is Pinchas doing with land in Ephraim at Gibeah? which was given to him in the hill country of Ephraim. Why would a priest be given land in the hill country of Ephraim? Inheritance from whom? He's a priest. Unless the inheritance is from Ephraim, Joseph, the son of Joseph. So look, this is the tribes, the cities of the Levitical tribe, the tribe of Levi. And it's divided into the towns of the Kahat, the priests, the towns for Gershon, and the towns for Merari. Look what's in Ephraim. See all those green ones? No. In Ephraim. See those green ones? And that green one, that's from Kahat. These are cities that were given to the priests. If they're green, they're Kahat, they're the priests. So you got, I can't really see it from here, Bet Horon and Shechem in Ephraim, okay? All right, fine. Maybe that would get Pinchas's land there, maybe. Except it says this. His father was buried at Gibeah of Pinchas, which was given him in the hill country of Ephraim. The cities were given to whom? The cities were given to whom? Kahat, the whole of the priesthood, not to one guy. But this is his territory, Pinchas's territory. So you go look on maps for Gibeah of Pinchas, and guess what? You can't find it. You absolutely cannot find it. You can find two other Gibeahs in Israel. You can find lots of Gibeah maps and stuff about this Gibeah down in Benjamin. There's hundreds of them, but not for the one in Ephraim. So I'm like, where is this? I'll just put money on it that it's at Shechem. So I go looking, I go searching on the internet to find out where is Gibeah of Pinchas. And this is what I found. It's in the town of what's called Awarta. It's a Palestinian town that they won't even let the Jews into. Awarta, where the tomb of Pinchas is there. It's a no-brainer. The tomb of Pinchas is there, which lies 5 miles southeast of Shechem, Nablus, Shechem. You know, there's war going on in Nablus right now, in Shechem, between the Palestinians and Israel, the Jews. Well, 5 miles southeast, which is a very, very short distance, in the territory of Ephraim, son of Joseph. And there's our answer. He has his tomb at Awarta, which is Gibeah, which is right near Shechem. He's a priest, but he's also the son of Joseph through Potiphar's daughter, Asnat, who is not just the priest of On, it's Yitro. It's Yitro. Yitro's daughter, Asnat, is the mother of Pinchas, who was buried here at Awarta. So he's got land here in Ephraim, right at Shechem. So he's just a total mystery, this guy. He's definitely from Yitro, and now you can see, I hope I've proven, that he's definitely from Joseph, from Ephraim. Does that make sense? Well, you can't have people that are priests from Ephraim. You can't. And you can't have priests from Jethro either. But he was. So he's a picture of the Messiah. He's a hidden priest. Now is it starting to make sense? Okay, so what did he do that's such a big deal? What did he do that took this child, he's a mamzer, he's a bastard. He's a child of Gentiles, Yitro, and then he's a child of Ephraim, and the tribes are not supposed to intermarry from another Gentile, Asnat. So he's all mixed up, he's all messed up, which is why they made fun of him. He's a mamzer, just like they did Yeshua. We don't even know who your daddy is. Same thing with this guy. They're saying, we don't know who his daddy is. He's doing all this horrible stuff in Israel. Who does he think he is? God looks at him and says just the opposite. He says, in his jealousy, my jealousy in them. And then later on he says, in my jealousy. B'kano et kinati b'tocham, inside of them. And then later, b'kinati. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Pinchas ben Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, has turned away my wrath from the sons of Israel, in that he was kina, he was jealous with kinati, my jealousy, betochem, inside of them. Listen, you've probably heard this before, so it's no big deal. But I think it's a big deal. Because people want to feel what God feels. Everybody I know wants to feel what God feels. But we don't. When we're doing the festivals, when we're doing the kosher laws, when we're doing the new moon, and we're doing the Shabbat, it's possible to tap in to feel what God feels. It is not a given. Listen to me. It's not a given that you're going to feel what God feels. But if you push yourself, to try to tap into what God feels, it is possible. In this case, it was exactly the opposite of what everybody else felt. Most of the people are complaining and fetching and crying because, we lost our family members, and they're killing people, and God is killing us. But who's feeling what God feels? My lover is having sex with somebody else. That's what I'm feeling right now. My Israel is having sex with, I'm going to say it, Christianity. With Moabite and Midianite women. I don't care what the ism is. God feels that jealousy when Jewish people don't love God the way God said to love him, which is Judaism. And it just thrills him for Jews to do Judaism. And then Gentiles who come in and do it. Thrills him because that's his love. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, it's not feelings. With all your heart, with all your soul, with all your your me'odecha, your me'od, your extra. It's not feelings. It's what we do and what we see and what we understand about God. And nobody was feeling it. And I'm including Moses now in this. Moses wasn't feeling it either. But this guy did. Pinchas felt in his jealousy, my jealousy, kinati, my jealousy, which is supposed to be betochem, inside them. But nobody's feeling it. And then later on in Numbers 25:13, 2 verses later, it says, because jealous to his God, because he was jealous for his God. He was jealous, not zealous. Jealous, like, don't you look at another man? Don't you look at another woman? Stop it. Like jealousy, jealous. And that word patochem, it just does not even fit in the verse. It just doesn't even fit. In his jealousy, my jealousy, that would make sense. Pinchas ben Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, has turned away my wrath from the sons of Israel, in that he was jealousy with my jealousy. Okay, that makes sense. Within them. It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even fit the verse. Within them. But it ain't in them. And the reason I'm making such a big deal about this is because it's the same exact word in this verse that we sing, that we love. Ve'asu li mikdash, v'shachanti betocham, inside of them. Let them build me a sanctuary that I may dwell betochem, inside of them. Yeah? Inside of them. Well, it says the same thing here. He was jealous with my jealousy inside of them. Inside of them. Okay. So now let's talk about jealousy. Because that's what he did that was such a big deal. Zechariah 8. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I am greatly jealous for Tzion. I am greatly jealous for Tzion. Not zealous, jealous. With great wrath, I'm jealous for her. I am ticked off. I'm so jealous, I can't stand it. That's what he says. And then there's going to be all these verses that say he finally blows up because of his jealousy. When's that going to be? Hello? When's that going to be? In the birth pangs. Come on, guys, wake up. When is he going to blow up and finally blow up in his jealousy? In his birth pangs. In the birth pangs. And we're going to see verses that say this. That's the purpose of the birth pangs. To get that baby born in the Jews. I'm greatly jealous for Zion. With great wrath I'm jealous for her. Kineti Tzion. Kina gedola. Kina, jealousy. Gedola, great wrath. Great jealousy. Chema gedola kinati la. I am jealous for her. I will return to Zion and will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Remember it says that Pinchas pierced Cosby and Zimri. How did he pierce them? Through what? You're close, but it's not through the pelvis. Her pelvis. Through her pelvis. Right. Well, it went through him too, but it pierced through her pelvis. And that's important. She's the idol. She represents the idolatry. I will return to Zion and dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. She will be called the city of truth, and the mountain of the Lord of hosts will be called Har Kadosh, holy mountain. Old men and old women will again sit in the streets of Jerusalem, each man with his staff in his hand because of age. This sounds fantastic, right? Sounds fantastic, yes? It's the kingdom when all the Jewish kids will be running around in the streets of Jerusalem, and all the old men will live to 1,000 years old. And, it's going to be fantastic. But look how it starts. I'm greatly jealous for Zion. With great wrath, I'm jealous for her. So there has to be jealousy and wrath before there is the kingdom, before there's a good part of the kingdom. I'll save my people from the east and the land of the west and bring them back. Joel 2, verse 18. Then the Lord will be jealous for his land. Vakaneh Yehovah la'artso, his land, and will have pity on his people. Why? Because he feels jealous for them. He can't stand, I'm going to say it again, he can't stand for his Jewish people to join themselves to any ism, any religion that's not Judaism. It just drives him nuts with jealousy. Okay, now there's 3 guys that were they felt the jealousy of God. Only 3, really. Only 3. 1 Kings 19:10. He, Elijah said, I've been very jealous for Yehovah. Now they translate it zealous, but it's not. It says, Kano kineti leYehovah. Kano, I have jealousy. Kineti. Actually, it's the word jealousy twice. Kano, his jealousy. Kineti, my jealousy leYehovah, for Yehovah. His jealousy is my jealousy for Yehovah. It says it twice. Kano, his jealousy. Kineti, my jealousy. For the sons of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, killed your prophets, and I'm the only one left. And they want to kill me now. That's Elijah. Elijah felt, and by the way, it says in the Talmud, in case you're interested, it says, Pinchas is Elijah. That's what it says. Pinchas is Eliyahu. And here's why. Because he also felt the jealousy of God. Psalm 69:9, for jealousy for your house, kinat bitecha, the jealousy for your house has consumed me, and the reproaches of those who reproach you fell on me. This is King David saying this. He also felt the jealousy of God. And then Pesach was near, and Yeshua went up to Jerusalem, and he found in the temple those selling oxen and sheep and doves, and he made a scourge of the cords, and he drove them out of the temple and overturned their tables and said, take these things away. Stop making my father's house a place of Canaanites. That's what merchant is, Canaanite in Hebrew. Then his disciples remembered that it was written, jealousy for your house will consume me. Who said that? Who said that? We just read it. No. David. So they're saying, just like David, Yeshua. He's the same. So these are the only three guys, really, except for Pinchas, of course, that it says in the scriptures felt God's jealousy. And look what Yeshua did with it. That's what Yeshua did with feeling God's jealousy. Same way Pinchas did the same thing, just went and skewered a man and the woman while they're having intercourse. But Yeshua did the same thing. He's driving, he's violent acts. So when God's jealousy comes, now listen to me, I know this could get weird and you could go too far with this or not go far enough. When you feel this anger, and you should feel an anger about Jewish people joining themselves to Hellenism, or to anything else for that matter. But Hellenism is obviously the biggest one. When you see that, and you should feel anger, because God feels anger, and that anger is kinah, jealousy. If you don't feel it, you're just like everybody else. But if you do feel it, it's possible to tap into what God's feeling. And to see that God's love for Israel is so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming. And then if you're Gentile, to be brought into that, it's just mind-blowing. His love for Israel is so overwhelming that it makes him not be able to function properly. And he can't think, and he can't function. And so everything kind of falls apart. And that's what the birth pangs are. It's like the whole world blowing apart because of his jealousy. And I'm going to show you a bunch of verses. We're going to go through a bunch of verses here that show this. Lord, your hand is lifted up, yet they don't see it. They see your jealousy for your people and are put to shame. Indeed, fire will devour your enemies. Where did fire devouring your enemies come from all of a sudden in this verse? Jealousy for your people. So, if there's jealousy for Israel, immediately you're going to see somebody whipping or somebody skewering or some fire or something bad coming against the people who are hurting Israel. Isaiah 37, the surviving remnant of the house of Judah will take root downward, bear fruit upward. For out of Jerusalem will go forth a remnant, and out of Mount Zion survivors. The jealousy of the Lord of hosts is going to do this. Isaiah 42, the Lord will go forth like a warrior. Like a warrior. Just picture that. The Lord will go forth like a warrior. And he'll arouse his jealousy like a man of war? Do people go to war for jealousy? Like being jealous of their woman? There's a big story about Troy and Helen and all that Greek mythology, that the war was supposedly about, you got my woman, Helen. Well, no, people do not go to war for jealousy. They go to war for greed. They go to war because they want. And they want that, so they're going to go take it and hurt people. That's why wars happen. But this is different. God is going to go forth like a man of war over his chick that somebody's doing something with. That's what the birth pangs are. He will utter a shout. Yes, he'll raise a war cry, and he'll prevail against his enemies because it's jealousy. Isaiah 59, he put on righteousness like a coat of mail, a helmet of Yeshua on his head, put on garments of vengeance for clothing, and wrapped himself in a robe of jealousy, a me'il, like the priest would wear a me'il, olive blue. He's going to wrap himself in a me'il of kina, of jealousy. And he's going to go do warfare. According to their deeds, so he will repay. Wrath to his enemies, recompense to his enemies. His adversaries, his enemies. Why? Because he's wrapped in jealousy. Isaiah 63, now this starts out, the Lord will come from Bozrah. The Lord will come from Mount Edom, from Mount Teman, from Mount Paran. And he'll come and he'll tread people like grapes in a wine vat. And then Revelation, it says the blood will rise up to the horse's bridle for 2,000 cubits or something like that. I don't know how far, like 100 miles. That's not 2,000 cubits, but it says that the blood will rise up for a long, long, long distance. That's quoting Isaiah 63. But it starts like that, and then it says in verse 4, "For the day of vengeance was in my heart. My own arm brought salvation to me, and my wrath upheld me. I trod down the peoples in my anger, and I poured out their lifeblood on the earth." And then in that context of the coming of the Lord on Yom Kippur, 6008, to trash his enemies, then in verse 13, it says, "Look down from heaven and see from your holy and glorious habitation. Where is your jealousy along with your mighty deeds?" You want to see it? It's there. Him trashing his enemies. There it is. Ezekiel 5, "Thus my anger will be spent, and I will satisfy my wrath on them, and I will be appeased. Then they will know that I, the Lord, have spoken in my kina, when I have spent my wrath on them." So next time you read the book of Revelation and you're reading about all the bad stuff, if you don't immediately think of God's feelings for Israel, you're wrong. You're going the wrong direction with it. It's all about God's feelings for Israel, for his lover. That's all it is. That's all the book of Revelation is. The whole birth pangs is because of his love, his undying, unending, uncountable, unweighable love for Israel. When I've spent my wrath on them, I'll be appeased. Then they'll know that I, the Lord, have spoken in my jealousy when I've spent my wrath on them. 38, Ezekiel 38. "In my jealousy and my blazing wrath, I declare that in that day there will be surely a great earthquake in the land of Israel." Zechariah 1, "Neither their silver nor their gold will be able to deliver them on the day of the Lord's wrath." Is there any doubt as to when this is? "And all the earth will be devoured." What? The whole world is going to be burned up and suffer because God loves Israel. The whole earth is going to be destroyed. Why? Because God loves Israel. Think about that. The earth will be devoured in the fire of his jealousy, for he will make a complete end, indeed a terrifying one, of all the inhabitants of the earth. Now can you see why Pinchas did what he did? Zephaniah 3. "Therefore wait for me, for the day when I rise up as a witness. My decision is to gather nations, to assemble kingdoms, to pour out on them my indignation, all my burning anger, for all the earth will be devoured by the fire of my kina. All the earth will be devoured by the fire of God's love for Israel, his bride." Now, I've shown you, as clearly as I can, that the birth pangs, God's anger, his wrath, is only because of his love for Israel. But now I'm going to show you that that's his name. Like what is it called? The sacred name movement in Christianity, and everybody worried about, is it Jehovah, is it Yahweh, Yahushua, and all this nonsense. God says his name is Kina. We know it's Yehovah because it's been proven to be Yehovah. But his name, his literal name, is Kina. Like if you were to sum up everything about God, it's Kina, jealousy. And he says this in the 10 words. In Exodus 20, you shall not make for yourself an idol that is any likeness of what is in heaven above, on earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. You shall not worship them or serve them. Why? Because I, Yehovah, your God, am a jealous God. I'm a God who's jealous. Anochi Yehovah Elohecha El Kana. I am El Kana. I'm a God jealous. But then he says it's his name. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers of the children on the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing loving kindness to thousands, to all those who love me and keep my mitzvot. And then in Exodus 34 he says this, that it's my name. Make no covenant with the inhabitants of the land. So he's always talking about idolatry. He's always talking about idolatry when he talks about his jealousy. Make no covenant with the inhabitants of the land into which you are going, or it will become a snare in your midst. But you are to tear down their altars, smash their sacred pillars, cut down their asherim, because you are not to worship any other God, Yehovah, whose name is jealous. A jealous God is he. Yehovah kana shemo, Yehovah kana shemo, his name, El Kanahu, God jealous is he. So at his root, at his core, it's not that he's the creator. At his core, it's not that he's a spirit that leads and guides everybody in the world. That's not his core. His core is love for his wife. That's his core. And nobody better mess with her. But she turned away from him, from Judaism, to any other thing. And that ticked him off. And he's still ticked off about it. Deuteronomy 4, so watch yourself, so you don't forget the covenant of the Lord and make for yourself a graven image in the form of anything. This which the Lord your God has established you. For Yehovah your God is a consuming fire, there's the fire, a jealous God. Yehovah Elohecha, Yehovah your God, Esh Ochla, a fire that eats, consuming fire. Hu El Kana, he is God Kana. That's who he is, he's Kana. Now, if you have in your mind, for God so loved the world, think about that now. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Why? Because of his all-consuming love for Israel. And those people that the Messiah is offered to are supposed to come into Israel. That's his bride. It's not just like a net thrown out to everybody to become some like generic everybody believing. It's not what it is. His name is Kina. He's jealous for his way, Israel, Judaism. And he wants everybody in it. And this is the key right here, Song of Solomon. Rashi and Rabbi Kiva both said that Song of Solomon is the core, the heart of the Tanakh. That it is the hub upon which the entire Tanakh rotates. It's the central point. It's the central story. And Rashi, I thought it was Akiva, but it's not. It's Rashi, actually rewrote the book of Song of Solomon in picture form so you could know what all the things meant. It's an amazing read, but it sounds very weird to us. And the whole thing is centered on this. In chapter 8, at the very end of the book, chapter 8, verse 6, it says, "Put me like a seal over your heart." This is the man talking to the woman. This is Israel, the woman talking to the man. "Put me, Israel, like a seal over your heart, God, over your heart, like a seal on your arm." Why? Look at this. "Love is as strong as death. Jealousy is as severe as Sheol. Its flashes are the flashes of fire. The flame of Yehovah." The flame of Yehovah. God said he's a consuming esh ochla, a fire that eats. Esh ochla, hu elkanah. He's a consuming fire, a fire that eats. Jealousy is severe as hell. Its flashes are flashes of fire. The flame of Yehovah. What is the flame of Yehovah? His love for Israel. His undying, absolutely unchangeable love for his bride Israel. And that's why this is such an important verse. Israel is a seal over God's heart, like a seal on his arm. Love is as strong as death. Jealousy is as severe as Sheol. Kinah is as severe as Sheol. It's going to burn up the whole world. God's love for Israel. Think about that. And then Ezekiel 36. The mountains, say this to the mountains and the hills and the ravines and the valleys, the desolate wastes and the forsaken cities, which have become a prey and a derision to the rest of the Gentiles which surround you. In the fire of my jealousy, I've spoken against the rest of the Gentiles and against all Edom. Oh, where else does it say the Gentiles, all the Gentiles are Edom? Where does it say that? That all the Gentiles are Edom. Amos 9, when he says, I'll raise up the fallen sukkah of David and restore its breaches that have been made, and I'll restore all the Gentiles, even all of Edom, the Gentiles who are called by my name. And that is the proof text that Gentiles can come to the Jewish Messiah. Well, it says it here. In the fire of my jealousy, I've spoken against the rest of the Gentiles, against all Edom, who took my land for themselves as a possession. Now, I would also say, I want you to picture not just my land, against all Edom who took my land. How about my Bible, my scriptures, my ways that I gave? Took my belief system, I'll call it religion, took my religion for themselves as a possession with wholehearted joy and with scorn of soul. Not with happiness of soul, with scorn of soul, to drive everything out of it. That was their motive in taking the Bible, is to drive all of what God put into it, which is Judaism. Just drive it out, get rid of it. And that's Edom. They took it for themselves. And they said, they're going to drive all that Jew stuff out of it. Prophesy concerning the land of Israel, and say to the mountains and the hills and the ravines and the valleys, look, I've spoken in my jealousy and in my wrath, because you have endured the insults of the Gentiles. Surely the Gentiles which are around you will themselves endure their insults. You're going to get payback. Measure for measure. Midan keneged midan. Measure for measure. But you, O mountains of Israel, you will put forth your branches and bear your fruit. Remember that verse that said they will bear fruit upward and bear roots downward. Remember? Same thing. Mountains of Israel, you will put forth your branches and bear your fruit for all my people Israel, for they will soon come. And this is the bottom line. This is supposed to be your heart. This is supposed to be your heart because it's God's heart. He says in Isaiah 65:21, he says, 65:2, all day long, kol hayom parasti yadai, kol hayom al Yisrael. Parasti, that means I stretch forth. Yadai, my hand. Kol hayom, all day long. El Yisrael, to Israel. Our hearts are supposed to be we're supposed to feel at least a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of that jealousy. Just a little bit. If you can just feel a little of it, that's good. That's what God feels. Just a little of that jealousy for Israel to reach your hand out all day long to Israel. This is what Shaul said. It was his heart. But as for Israel, he says, all day long I've stretched out my hand to a disobedient and obstinate people. I don't like that word disobedient. It's unsubmissive and obstinate, hard-headed people. All day long. And everybody focuses on this. Disobedient and obstinate. All day long. Yeah, but they're disobedient and obstinate all day long. You get what I'm saying? It can't stop just because they're being jerks. Who cares? That's his bride. You do not touch his bride. You do not look at his bride. You do not entice his bride into Christianity. That's his bride. Gentiles are to come into his bride so we can feel his love. Because God so loved everybody that he invited them into his bride. And that's the bottom line. It's not everybody who's important. The bottom line is Israel is what's important, so that everybody's important. And that is the order of God. It used to really make me mad, and it would tick me off when Eileen, my wife, she would, like if I look at another woman, I just glance at another woman, she'd catch me. She'd go, "What are you doing?" I'd go, "Golly, what are you, a hawk?" And I'd get mad. She was feeling the proper jealousy. And then I'd get mad at myself, like some guy would talk to her, and I'd go, "I don't like that. I don't like that." And I'm like, what am I doing? But it's right. It's good to feel jealousy for your bride or your husband. Well, can you imagine feeling that all day long? And God's saving it up and saving it up and saving it up until the birth pangs. When those birth pangs hit, it's going to burn up the world because it's the fire of his kinah. And that's essentially what Pinchas felt. You dare have sex with a demon in front of my God? Who are you, Pinchas? Your daddy was a Gentile. I don't care. Just like Yeshua going into the temple. We don't even know who your daddy is, Yeshua. Where'd you come from? Nazareth. Come on. Who are you? I don't care. So when there's jealousy, there's going to be anger. When there's jealousy of God, there's going to be anger. And it has to be. And we should embrace it. And I mean, look, I'm the same as you. But once in a while, if you can work it up, if you can get your mind on that, how angry and how hurt God feels when a Gentile goes toward Hellenism. And then multiply that by 50 times. How hurt and how angry God is when he sees one of his bride, Israel, going toward Hellenism, going toward Christ, or going toward Buddhism, or going toward Shintoism, or going toward, well, that's extreme, or going toward, all these things are Hellenism. That's what all of them are, every one of them. Like meditation or whatever. They're all Hellenism, every one of them. And when any Jew goes toward that, God, it just hurts him so much. And if you can feel one tiny little piece of that, God will bless you with a brit shalom, a covenant of peace, because that's the promise that was given to Pinchas. He says, because he felt my jealousy within them, I'm going to give him the eternal priesthood plus a brit shalom, olam, covenant of shalom forever. You want shalom? Quit acting like Hellenists. You want shalom? Get away from Hellenism and join the fight, because it's a fight. The only way to get peace is to fight for it. So that's my message. That's what I want to say. I love, love, love this picture. I love it. I love everything about it. I love what it says. I love what it indicates. And I'm still shooting for this in my heart. Hold on. I'm still shooting for this in my heart. To every day when I get up, all day long, stretch forth my hands to a stubborn and obstinate people. All day long. Yes.
Something very simple. Cosby means a liar.
Cosby means liar.
Or sliding away.
Or sliding away.
So I just thought, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because here is Zimri, which means protected or sacred.
Zimri means protected or sacred.
Yeah.
There's no such word as sacred. That's kadosh.
Yeah. Well, it's
Protected. Protected.
And Cosby was the daughter of Sur, which means rock, but it's related to the word Surus.
Okay, I got lost. What do you want to say?
So I think it's interesting because here's this Jew going and having sex with a Midianite who is a picture of lies.
Yeah. He's having sex with a picture of lies and deception. Cosby sliding away from Judaism, and that's where she was pierced. Didn't pierce through the man, through the Jew, pierced through the idol, the woman. She's the idol. She's the picture of the idol. She's the sliding away from Judaism. And that's what the piercing went through. Her pelvis, the idol's pelvis, where the babies come from, where all the little Hellenistic babies come from. The seed, right. That's where they were pierced. So, see if you can get your heart more toward that illustration, and you'll be going in the right direction. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for parasti yadai. All day long, your hand is stretched out. Kol hayom al el Yisrael. All day long, your hand is stretched out to Israel, even though. You never stop stretching out your hand to Israel, even though. All those even those. And I ask that you would open up the eyes of your bride, both Jew and Gentile, especially Israel, the Jews, especially Israel. Open their eyes to see how hurt you are when we walk away from Judaism, when we leave the Derech HaMelech, the king's highway, the king's way, the way of the king, to turn to the right or to the left. I ask that you'd help your body to get focused, and then to stay focused on the way of the king. Thank you, Abba, that you never take your hand away from Israel. You never take your heart away from Israel. Never. Not for 1 second. Thank you, Abba. Amen. Let's stand for the Aleinu. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם. Let us adore the Lord of all, who in greatness created the world from of old. He's not made us like the nations of the earth, nor has he made us like the families of the land, He has not made our destiny like theirs or cast our lot with all of them. Va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. And we bend the knee and bow in worship and give thanks to the King of Kings, the Holy One. Blessed is He. The one who spread out the heavens and established the earth. Your majesty is in the heavens, and your mighty presence in the highest heights. Hu Eloheinu, ein od, emet malkeinu, efes zo lato. He is our God. There is nothing else. Our God is truth. Nothing else compares. As is written in your Torah, know this day and take it to heart that Adonai is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Ein od. There is nothing else. Therefore we put our hope in you, Jehovah our God, to soon see your majestic glory, that you would remove all idols from the earth, completely cut off all false gods, perfecting the world in the kingdom of the Lord, when all mankind will call on your name and all wicked of the earth will turn to you. Let all on earth acknowledge that to you every knee must bend, every tongue swear loyalty, and may all take upon themselves the yoke of your kingdom, and may you reign over them soon and forever. As it is written, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, the Lord will reign forever and ever. As is said in your Torah, V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz b'yom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shamo echad. And it is said, the Lord shall be king over all the earth in that day. The Lord shall be one, in his name one. Shabbat Shalom. Let's do Kiddush.